Welcome to another show that focuses on Africa. It's great to have you with us. This week we focus on education and the girl child. We speak with Hendrina Doroba, who is the Executive Director of FAWE. We get your views on the issues as well. And as always, we have Africa's top 10. You're watching the Africa Leadership Dialogues. I'm Julie Gichuru. On the show this week, we focus on matters of education and the girl child. We also discuss technology as well and its application in education. We host Hendrina Doroba, the Executive Director of FAWE, the Forum for African Women Educationalists. She's based in Nairobi, Kenya, but she is a Zambian national who's been working with FAWE since July 2007. Hendrina has over 30 years experience in teaching and social development work. She started her career as a teacher, taught secondary school mathematics and geography at a girls-only school, and later worked in service teacher coordination. She has developed and coordinated in-service training programs for teachers of mathematics in Zambia and has also worked with Oxfam GB Zambia as a national coordinator. Hendrina has also worked with the Commonwealth Education Fund project and with the Irish Embassy in Zambia as the education manager. Hendrina has won 2 prestigious scholarships, one to the University of Melbourne in Australia and the other to the University College of Dublin in Ireland. Let's get her views on the issues. Hendrina, welcome to the Africa Leadership Dialogues. Thank you for making time to be with us.
Thank you.
Now, you've got a very interesting profile. You've been out in the trenches, if I could put it that way, teaching yourself. Now you're at the forefront of trying to influence policy around education to ensure that the girl matters. When you look at Africa today, have we come forward? Do you think we've achieved anything when you know, looking back at maybe a few decades ago? What are your thoughts?
Thanks, Julie. I think in terms of education, I would say we've achieved a lot. When we look back 20 years ago, nobody used to talk about girls' education. No Minister of Education would actually bring the girls' issues on the policy agenda. But we have seen governments taking that step. We have seen governments developing policies that have actually changed the way people think about education, particularly in the Ministry of Education itself. So I would say we've actually moved quite a mile, even though we still have a lot to do in terms of translating these policies into action.
Are you able to look at certain African countries and say the growth here has been significant while others maybe have not done so well? If you were to hail and to shame, what countries would you mention?
In terms of hailing and shaming, I think overall most of the countries have done quite well. And I want to start with Ethiopia. I mean, this is a country where we never thought issues of girls' education would actually come on the agenda, but seeing them to the level that now they recognize teachers need to be empowered with the pedagogical skills that take cognizance of the needs of girls, I think for me that's a big plus. I've also seen a number of countries in Southern Africa, like Malawi, Zambia, where gender parity at enrollment has actually grown to almost equal to 0. That is not enough, of course. We've seen the trends in terms of the number of girls that are dropping out of school, that we need to work on it. From the West African countries, I think they're making strides as well, but I would say the French-speaking countries need to pull up their socks a bit. The English-speaking countries seem to have adapted the gender policies quite well, and I think they are doing very well. Kenya, for instance, is also a leading example in terms of ensuring that gender policies are integrated into national budgets. If you recall, in 2010, they actually committed to transforming 72 centers of excellency, and thanks to FAWE, we were behind that move and we are quite happy with that. We know that there's been some political move around that, but I think in terms of commitment, that's a plus. And particularly that the governments can say we are going to ensure that there's a budget provision. that will address issues of girls.
Well done on achieving that, and certainly on taking this space and pushing for these policies as FAWE. I want to look at your story, Hendrina, now. And as I mentioned earlier, coming from the teaching profession to sitting, pushing leaders in different states, dealing perhaps with organizations like the African Union. There are a lot of people who sit at home, and maybe there's a teacher somewhere thinking, I cannot change this continent. One day you were that teacher.
Yes.
What message do you have for people on how truly, as individuals, we do have the power to transform Africa?
I think I have a message to everyone, including the female teachers, that we can make a difference. When I started teaching, I was going there with an agenda that I'm going to contribute and I'm going to make a difference. I think this could have been informed by the way the male folks or male colleagues were looking at me, thinking that I could not do anything that they were doing. And so I went out there saying, you know what, this is a space I can occupy as well, and I'm going to do it. So when I became a teacher, I remember one experience is my first teaching was in a girls' school. And I trained to teach mathematics. And I go in class and the girls look at me and say, what are you doing here? This is not a subject for girls.
No, they didn't.
They did. Oh, and some of them walked out. And I said, that's fine. They walked out and said, no, you are a tomboy. And we don't think you'll be able to teach us. But by the end of the term, I got all my girls back. And these are girls now who are actually looking back and saying, you made a difference in our lives. And imagine if one like me can do it, and we have thousands of female teachers out there, they can make a difference.
What gave you the confidence? What made you believe I can turn these girls around, even if they walk out on me? I won't be angry. And I want to focus on this for a moment because many people are frustrated and feel locked into spaces that they can't change. And often it is those who care the most who are most frustrated and most angry. So how do we transform that passion for our continent and that frustration into positivity? What did you use to inspire yourself to try?
One of the things I used was actually the push that I got from my parents, my father in particular. I mean, I'm coming from a family of seven girls and only 3 boys. And every time you ask something, my father would say, you can make it. It doesn't matter whether you're a girl or a boy, you can make it. And I think that built a lot of confidence in me. And then when I went to school also, the space was not leveraged in terms of engagement. But every time he would come up and say, you can do it. Everybody has the same grey matter, so you can also do it. And that built a lot of confidence in me. When I went to teacher training college, the same thing. I was 1 out of 15 teachers of mathematics, and I was the only female. But the fact that I was able to excel and the men or the boys around me were looking up to me, I said, if I can make a difference here, I can make a difference anywhere. So having that confidence in yourself is very critical. Yeah.
That's an inspiring story. And I tell you what's most powerful about it is that it was your father.
Yes.
To all the fathers watching who think they leave the child nurturing to the wives or who are not sure how to engage, particularly sometimes with their daughters and feel it's easier to deal and communicate with their sons, well, what do you have to say to them about what they can contribute?
2 things. Have an open communication with your daughter. Your daughter is like any other child in the family. Give them the space and then build that confidence. I think one thing my father did was not to look down upon me, but just to bring me up to the level that I felt, yes, there's somebody supporting me. And that didn't matter. That matters a lot when I went to school. No matter how the teachers, I had an experience where teachers were looking down and say, why are you raising up your hand? This is not your turn. This is not your subject. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is my subject. So I'd go up, raise up my hand, and if they don't pick me up, I speak up. And I think going through that kind of gave me a lot of confidence. The fact that I was able to actually challenge those situations.
Even though you're being shut down.
Even though I was being shut down. Yes, I said I'm present. I'm present. And to spice it up, when I went to university, I went to a foreign university in Australia, and I was doing mathematics. And nobody knew, there were very few girls, and nobody knew who was getting what marks. But one day, the lecturer said, I'm very impressed with one girl. She's done so well. And then they announced my name. the gender dynamics changed, the relationship changed, everybody wants to take you out, everybody wants to have a conversation with you. So I said, wow.
And the girls, I can imagine, all the confidence of all the female students must have been uplifted as well.
Yes, they look at it and say, well, you've done it and we can also do it. And I think also getting that peer support is very critical, because sometimes girls tend to bring you down, but if they support you, I think you can make a difference.
Oh, it's a powerful one. Sometimes it's the girls who are bringing their sisters down.
Exactly.
How do we build an Africa where both the girl and the boy are empowered? There's the concern now that there's, in certain places, you will find the boy child dropping away from engaging positively, whether it's alcoholism being very high, whether it's gangs being pulled into different things. And then, of course, we do have the challenges with the girl child as well, still trying to ensure they stay in school, still trying to deal with various cultural practices that might hold the girl back. How do we ensure that we put these two on par, if that's the right term? And what would it mean for Africa if we could?
Yeah, we still have a long way to put them on par, but we also recognize that there are boys who are actually disadvantaged. Certainly we need to look up to them and help them, but there are more girls that are disadvantaged. I think one of the things that we need to do is look at if they are the youth, as youth, regardless of the gender, and let them correlate, let them support each other as girls. One of the lessons we have learned from our organization is that when we just started, there was so much focus on the girls and leaving the boys behind in terms of our engagements, in terms of creating that awareness, and that had a backlash. So the boys now started thinking, there's too much attention to the girls, what about us, what's happening? And so we had to change the strategy and said, listen, let's work together, you coexist, you support each other. There are certain roles that you play as girls and there are roles that boys play. So how can we support each other? So using that gender approach to actually learn to appreciate each other would be critical. And that goes even with the education system. I'm not ashamed to say that the leadership is male-dominated, and so decisions are kind of biased to men. We need to get out of that cocoon. We need to bring the women or the female face on the policy level. And I think that makes a difference.
Stay with the Africa Leadership Dialogues.
Many countries seem to be trying to put policy into place to ensure women are seated at the table. But right now, perhaps it's 1/3. We're still not at 50-50. Yeah. Where do you see the ideal Africa, though?
I'm looking for an ideal Africa, not just representation on numbers on the table, but quality contribution when women are on that table. And quality contribution both from male and female. I think what we have seen in the last 5-6 years is that, yes, they've tried to bring women or girls on board, but how much capacity have we built for those to actually be able to confidently speak out about issues that affect them and actually influence the male-dominated conversation that is going on? One of the things as Africa that we need to be looking at is creating or building the capacity of the young people that are coming up, because it's only them that will make change happen.
What are the greatest challenges facing the African continent today?
In terms of education?
Generally.
Well, poverty is one of them, and poverty has different faces. And when I look at poverty from a gender dimension, is that when choices are being made on who does what or who has access to what, girls are always disadvantaged. And unless we recognize that there's a gender dimension to that and we need to address it, we are going to go down the drain. Much as Africa has all these natural resources, if we don't manage these resources to the level that we are able to add value to some of the products that are coming out, we'll still be working for the Western or the Eastern world. Right. I think it's time for us that we add value to the production chain and be able to proudly feed the nations across.
Feed the nations, produce manufactured items of good quality for sale, and stop this game of sending raw materials.
Yeah, because imagine how much employment you're creating for other people, and yet your own youth are in the street.
When African states started getting their independence, a good, 50, 60 years ago now, they knew this. And if we look back at some of the founding fathers of our nations, they speak about these things. The Nkrumahs, the Kenyattas spoke about these things. Nyerere spoke about these things. What has the failure been? Have we not been ambitious enough? Do we not believe in ourselves as Africans? And how do we change that? Is it changing?
It is changing to some level, but we could do more. And I think the more is what we want to make a difference. And I'm saying this is that we recognize, I mean, in my own country, the Kenneth Kaunda, they had the ideas, they were ambitious, and they've made their contribution, and we need to appreciate that. However,
they did their part.
They did their part, but we have a role to play as well. And our role to play is let's actualize whatever ideas that we have into practice. I think where we are lacking behind is we are very good at talking. Action is almost zero. How do we move from just having the policies in place to actually transforming the way we do things, the kind of actions, the kind of conversation, and just the way we look at individuals? I think for me that is very critical.
So our role is in acting, walking the talk.
Walking the talk. That is very, very critical. And then we need to go beyond the self. I think we have seen that the few that have and the many that don't have, there's such a gap. We need to reduce that gap. And unless that is done, it will be very difficult to turn around the economy of this country or of the continent.
I want to come to a critical area, which is technology, and bring it back to your speciality, which is education, and ask, do you see opportunities and advantages in technology when it comes to education in Africa?
Oh, yes. A lot of it. I mean, right now we are talking about 10 million girls in particular that are out of school or are not attending school when they are supposed to be in school. Can the continent actually take them back? No. Do they have the space? No. But there's opportunity here of technology. How do we use technology as a means of actually educating, the society? How do you use technology as a cheaper way, actually, of ensuring that everybody is reached out, everybody gets the kind of information, the kind of skills that they require? We have seen it happen in the past 2 years. And if we continue investing in that, I think we can make a difference. So for me, I see technology as a means to actually getting people educated, to actually putting the information out there. And governments need to commit to that.
Are they accepting of it? Do you sense that there is, and it looks like some governments are more willing to move in that direction, but are you feeling a general acceptance of this principle?
No, it's a dotted acceptance because...
Dotted
acceptance. And I'm saying that from our own studies in our organization, that we still have schools that, for instance, cannot allow the use of cell phone for various reasons. But we also see in situations or schools where cell phones are being used, but they are being misused, or computers are being used, but they are not being used for the purpose. So it's a situation where we need to look at the end user, but we also need to look at the policy provision. What policy provision do we have in place, and how are we building the capacities of the people in charge of these policies to actually translate the policies into action? If ICT is an alternative to providing education, what are we doing about that? Can we go beyond having the e-platform? Can we reach out those marginalized who are deep down in the communities where they cannot even reach the computer? What are we doing about that? And the majority of our girls in particular are in those areas. I think if governments committed so much, they would be able to reach out. And remember, education is a right. And those girls in those marginalized communities need to enjoy that.
They are entitled to it.
Yes, they are.
If government's committed, transformation could happen.
Yes.
Before I ask you to look into the camera and deliver your message to millions of Africans watching, I'd like you first to just address the negative aspects of digital and access to the internet and access to so many other things. What would your warnings be to people right now?
Well, I think, and again, this is from, could be personal experience, but also within the interaction in the community. Much as we are excited about the ICT and so on, I think we have not put in mechanism in place to actually control on what a 10-year-old is watching and what a 35-year-old is watching, or what is being uploaded online and exposed to or sent out to everybody. For me, we need to strengthen these policies, but also there's a lot of abuse in as far as sharing of information is concerned. At what point do I consider to have my privacy or to enjoy my privacy? So I think governments need to put measures in place to ensure that we put policies that actually respect human rights. For me, that is very, very critical. Even as we shout and say education can use this as a medium of learning, how and what mechanisms have we put in place to make sure that this happens without compromising on the rights of individuals?
So even on digital platforms, the law needs to apply in terms of people's rights.
Yes.
Thank you. We come right to the end of the show so quickly. Please look into the camera and please deliver your message to the African citizenry, but also speak to African leaders. What should we be thinking about now, even as we try to change this continent?
To the African leaders, we need to create that space for women. And I mean genuinely creating the space where women have the opportunity and the voice to actually play a role or contribute to the development of this economy. If we leave the women out, we'll be losing this continent. So I urge you that let's create a genuine space where women can play a role. To the females that are watching, you have the potential in you, and I want you to explode with that potential. You make a difference at family level, you make a difference in your community, you make a difference in this continent. For us to transform this continent, we need women to be at the forefront. So the space is there for you.
Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you.
Stay with the Africa Leadership Dialogues.
But what are your thoughts on education and the girl child? Let's get straight to your views.
This week, we asked you, how can African states ensure that they build and enhance our competency-based education curriculum? Eugene Tolbert says, I think we should have one education system across the continent rather than adopting foreign systems.
Oriama D. Ikarut says, by ensuring our systems of education are contextualized to the development needs of the continent.
Hello, my name is Collins Trishna from Nairobi, Kenya, and my view on how African states can build and enhance competency when it comes to education and curriculum is that they need to incorporate policies in the educational system whereby when one graduates from primary education to post-university, they actually graduate to create employment, not only to seek employment.
To join our conversation, go to our G+ page, Africa Leadership Dialogues, on Facebook, Africa Leadership Dialogues, on Twitter, @AfricaLD, and on WhatsApp, send your video comments to +254 715 816 033.
It's time now for Africa's Top 10.
On Africa's Top 10 this week, we feature countries with the best education system. This study focused on how well the education system in African countries meets the needs of a competitive economy. It is ranked out of 7. This is according to the World Economic Forum. Starting us off at number 10 is Ghana with an index of 3.87 and ranked at number 59 globally. Coming in at number 9 is Cape Verde. The island nation is ranked at number 57 globally with an index of 3.9. Taking the number 8 spot is Rwanda. Hailed as one of the fastest growing economies in Africa, Rwanda attained an index of 4.0 and is ranked at number 50 globally. Positioned at number 7 is Lesotho with an index of 4.1 and ranked at number 49. Zimbabwe takes the number 6 spot. The South African state attained an index of 4.25 and is ranked at number 43. Slotted in at number 5 is Mauritius, which is ranked at number 42 globally with an index of 4.29. At number 4 is the Gambia. The West African country attained an index of 4.34 and is ranked at number 39 globally. Seychelles takes the number 3 spot with an index of 4.37 and is ranked at number 37 globally. Coming in at number 2 is Zambia. The Republic is ranked at number 36 globally with an index of 4.39. And at number 1 this week is Kenya. The East African state attained an index of 4.57 and is ranked 30th globally. And that's Africa's Top 10 this week.
And now we close with words of wisdom. Another African proverb for you. And this one goes, wealth if you use it comes to an end. Learning if you use it increases. And so learn. Blessings to you and blessings to Africa.